Hello, welcome back. It's the end of the week, and I'm talking about the Warlock today, the new Warlock for Dungeons and Dragons 2024. Uh, I have quite a bit to say about the Warlock because it is probably one of the most misunderstood classes out there for various reasons. And so I'm going to put up a poll. Feel free to take part in that poll. Grab some food, some drink, make sure you're comfortable, and then we'll get straight into this. And I'll break it down. So I'm going to go over everything and then give you my analysis. Now, I'll make it clear, okay, I do analysis. I do not just tell you what stuff is. That's not really where my head is at. So grab some food, some drink, make sure you're comfortable, and we're going to get started, shall we? Hi, welcome to How to RPG. My name is Fred Weller, and today I want to talk about not just tabletop role-playing games, but Dungeons and Dragons 2024. And we're going to focus in on the Warlock, the new Warlock for Dungeons and Dragons 2024. I consider this not to be Dungeons and Dragons 5e. I don't think it's 5.5. I think there is enough changes taking place that we're looking at 6e. Now, what version you think it is really doesn't matter. Ultimately, it's just, let's break it down. So, one of the first things I'll say is that the Warlock has always suffered in terms of people's understanding of what the Warlock is supposed to do. And so, as a result of that, it's unfortunate that design around it has kind of got confused. It's really unfortunate that the designers themselves really have not fully understood what they wanted to do with this as they transition over as well. So my first thing that I want to say just right now is the Warlock has been a messed up magic user or spellcaster that has really not transitioned well from Dungeons and Dragons 4e, which I've played, over to Dungeons and Dragons 5e. It has not transitioned over very well at all. The Warlock tends to wind up being a variant of a wizard or a sorcerer, where it probably was better off just to be a subclass rather than its own class. And I don't think that's what a lot of people who play the Warlock are necessarily looking for. But I'll say right now that the 2024 Warlock is better than the 2014 version, in my opinion. There's a couple of things I need to get off my chest before I'm going to show you stuff. I'm going to show you the Warlock class, but you probably already know all that stuff anyway. But I just wanted to say right now as a disclaimer that I don't personally support Wizards of the Coast as a company. I don't buy their products anymore due to their business practices and the poor quality of the products that I've had to review in the past. It's been quite frustrating. So I don't do that. Why am I doing this then? Well, because a patron provided me with free access to the D&D Beyond Digital Player's Handbook for 2024 so that I could present my honest opinion. And I have people who still watch my channel who play Dungeons and Dragons 5e, who will play the 2024 version of D&D, and I have patrons who also play that game. I also play characters. Like, I play characters more than I dungeon master because everybody in my group is a player and a game master, okay? So I don't have to play the role of the dungeon master all the time. But mostly the game that I play is Dungeons & Dragons 5e and Back Me D&D right now. Those are the primary games or role-playing games that I play. But I've played a lot of different games, and I still do. We were actually moving more into Shadow Dark. I've played Dagger Heart. I've played Super Atomic, which you probably have not heard of. I've played more Pirate Borg, Star Wars Saga, Fate, Mage Ascension, Sagas, Pathfinder First Edition, and other versions of D&D. So that's my perspective in terms of all of that. Now, before I give you my thoughts, I want to at least share with you the material that I have on the book itself. So here is the Warlock on D&D Beyond. One of the first things takes me is the art. The art of the demon here, or whatever the heck this thing is, this works for me. Then you scroll down and this doesn't work for me. I always felt like the Warlock was the edgy character, like a rogue, right? I don't want an edged lord, but I do not quite understand this very happy individual here gaining their power. I mean, I suppose you should be helpful. I'm happy that you get power, right? But yeah, it doesn't quite sell it for me. And yeah, I'm not a fan of this art. Um, the layout is slightly different, but essentially most things are the same. You'll notice that there's multi-classing discussed. The table itself is different. You'll notice that there's a prepared spell column now instead of known spells, so that's different. You'll also notice that the number of invocations you get has changed as well. There's a few more. Okay. You'll notice there's a few different features enlisted. Invocations are going to come on board sooner. You'll notice that pack magic is going to work a little bit differently to what it did before. You're going to see a sort of an inclusion of magical cunning in an attempt to sort of solve a problem that the Warlock had, which is running out of magic. Subclasses, essentially the same. I think the Archfey, the Celestial Fiend, and the Great Old One, I'm pretty sure they're the same. Ability score improvement stuff, I'll discuss that. It's pretty much in the same place. Contact Patron is a new feature. Mystic Arcanum is an old feature. And then you've got Epic Burns, which is a new thing. And then you've got, well, it's an old thing that's just been moved around, really. And then you've got Eldritch Master. And then we have all of the many invocations that you can select, some of which are going to look very similar. Some are going to have restrictions on them. You'll notice that there's very few invocations that have a you use it once sort of thing and that's it. Quite often you've got an aspect to your invocation that is an ongoing thing, so it never runs out. Not to say that there isn't long rest mechanics in here, there certainly is. So it's really interesting how they've gone about trying to design some of these invocations. I almost feel like it would be almost smarter to just say, grab this invocation and it's a list of these spells that you can cast all the time. But that's not what the invocations are. Sometimes they're like that, sometimes they're not. And then, of course, we get the spell list. And great news, the spell list is in an easy-to-find place. It's not hard to find. And I do have something to say about the spell list itself, and then we go into subclasses. So I don't want to go into subclasses just yet. What I want to do is I want to go back to my head cam and just talk about some of the things that I noticed personally when I was going through this particular class. There's been a distinct attempt by the design team to try to solve some of the problems that the Warlock had. It really has. Huge amount of effort clearly has been put into it. Was it enough? I don't know about that. But anyway, let me just go through the things that I noticed when I was looking at the Warlock. When I was looking at the Warlock, particularly around the skills, for example, I still don't understand why the Warlock does not have Persuasion as a possible proficient skill. Does the fact that we have Charisma as being our primary ability score preclude us from being able to use Persuasion? Are we only ever going to be using Intimidation and Deception? Is that the only way we can define our Warlock? Now, I suppose you could say, well, that's just making sure it's in the right niche. But I think, like with all of the classes, we should not have restricted skills. We should have just opened it up. Should have said something like, the Warlock gets this. You have Arcana. That's a skill you get. You don't choose that, you just get it. You're a Warlock. You probably, like Sorcerer and a Wizard, you probably just get Arcana. And then you pick some of these. And just open it up to anything that the players want to select so they can build around whatever fantasy they have. That would have been my preference. So it's essentially the same as it was before. It hasn't changed. The starting equipment set has removed the broader options that you had in 2014. So you had a lot more choice. You could actually pick some stuff. Now, why did they do this? Why did they narrow it down? Probably because they think beginners need to have a narrowed down list. But even a beginner playing a Warlock is probably going to want to pick their weapon. You might be saying, well, hang on, it really didn't matter what sort of weapon I had when I was playing a Wizard. And I would agree, because you're probably never going to do it. But you're never going to use your weapon. You're going to use your magic. But Warlock characters are a little bit different in that Some people view the Warlock as a distance blaster and spellcaster, okay, and other people view the Warlock as a Gish, really, because that's what they're trying to go for, the Gish. They're going for fight up close and cast magic. That's what they're after. So even a beginner, I feel, with playing a Warlock would have wanted to select their weapon rather than be narrowed down to you get a sickle and something else. I can't remember what it was. Otherwise, you get to buy your gear for 100 gold pieces, which is fine. It's all in the same place. It's not scattered. You don't have to go looking for it. So at least that's organised it a bit better. But yeah, I don't think the starting gear. I think that's not an improvement. Okay. Now, a Pact of the Blade or melee Warlock. We need to talk about that very quickly right now at the very beginning, because this is one of those things. The Hex Blade is super popular, and you're not going to see the Hex Blade in 2024. Okay, it's not there. The Pact of the Blade, if you're playing Pact of the Blade or you're trying to build a melee Warlock, it will not survive very long in a melee combat without multiclassing, which essentially means you have to multiclass. Or your other choice is to get medium armor proficiency, because your armor proficiency with light armor will not be high enough, and frankly, mage armor will not be good enough to survive in the front line. Okay, a 15 in armor class is not going to be enough, even if you can make that happen. And then so that means you have to get medium armor proficiency and shield proficiency probably too. Those 2 feats, you have to go the 2 separate feats or multi-class. So you won't go getting 2 feats to get medium armor and shield proficiency. You're going to go with I'll multi-class. I lose a level, but at least I get the medium and shield proficiency, and that's what I need if I want to be in the front line. And that's probably, I would say, a design flaw when you design something and it has to work this way. Now, here's the problem. Is it a mismatch and a misunderstanding by the designers in terms of how they should have designed the Warlock? Or should there be a different class that is the melee spellcaster? Is the Warlock supposed to be the melee spellcaster? It's trying to do 2 jobs. I almost feel like there needs to be 2 versions of the Warlock, or we need to create something completely different. Maybe we just call it the Gish. It's a Gishy. It's a wishy-wishy one. Let's play the wishy one, the Gishy-wishy. You get more invocations, and you get them at level 1. So you get more flexibility. The invocations are better, and you get 1 extra invocation every level in general, which is helpful. I think in higher levels you're going to have maybe 2. I can't remember exactly where it happens. Now, this is an awesome idea. I agree. I approve. And it was needed. It really was needed, because you get so few spells that you can cast without having to take a short rest or a long rest to get back your spell slots, because you don't have a lot of spells as a Warlock. That's one of the features of the Warlock, is you do not have Vancian magic. Really, I mean, the idea is not to have Vancian magic, frankly, as a Warlock. The idea, and we'll get into this more, that you don't run out of magic. But anyway, Pact of the Chain, Pact of the Blade, Pact of the Tome are now invocations. They are not something that you pick. So you can take none of those if you want. You could exclude all 3 of those, or you could eventually take all of them. It's very smart, flexible design. I approve of this concept. I think this is very smart. I like this. And I can see people maybe dabbling in 2 rather than taking all 3. So, picking up things that sort of will work together. But you could just leave them alone completely. Nice. Pact magic at level 1 gets you access to your spells. Not very many, but, you get to cast a couple. Cantrips, which you can switch out. I don't like the idea of switching out cantrips. Frankly, I think it's not a great move. I've always felt like if you're going to have that, just give them more cantrips and be done with it. Now you can use ritual casting, because everybody is a ritual caster. Unfortunately, as a Warlock, you are on the sad wagon, because you don't get many spells that are on your list that are in fact a ritual to cast anyway. I think this is really unnecessary, and some design changes are required around pack magic to make that work a little bit better, because it's all very well having that, but then you really can't use them. And the idea being is, you have invocations, right? You don't really need to have ritual casting. Sure, okay, all right, I'll go with that, maybe. Next, the Warlock's known spells column is being replaced by the prepared spells. So it's essentially the number that is exactly the same, I'm pretty sure. But this means that the Warlock has access to their entire spell list. You just need to select the ones that you're going to prepare for that given day. And I think the mechanics behind it make it a little bit easier to sort of change things out, right? I'm all for this. I think this is a smart move. It's a good change. It will avoid confusion amongst players, which is something I always approve of. It will allow for flexibility. Flexibility with casting magic is a good thing, just because it just stops that frustration and confusion setting in, particularly the frustration when you realize you've got the wrong tools at your disposal for a given situation, because you didn't really know exactly what was going to happen. This happens for wizards, sorcerers, like all spellcasters, to some degree have this problem. The wizard is probably the worst culprit, but at least this has tried to address that. You have your magical cunning at level 2, lets you spend a minute to regain half your spell slots, which is not very much because you don't have that many spell slots. This is actually probably weaker than what I would consider the wizard's arcane recovery feature. It hasn't really solved the issue of a warlock running out of spells either, but you do get more invocations, so I suppose that's supposed to sort of offset that. More invocations, and then magical cunning as well to help keep you going during your adventuring day or whatever you're trying to do. Your subclasses at level 3, you select from the 4. There's Archfey, Celestial, Fiend, and the Great Old Ones, same as 2014. The rest of the subclass features are picked up at level 6, 10, and 14. Again, identical to 2014. So the new version is not a huge difference. There are a lot of things in the Warlock that are pretty much exactly the same and have not changed. They've just done minor tweaks and adjusted to small things. You gain your ability score improvement feat at level 4, 8, 12, and 16 as normal. It is not optional to use feats. You have to use feats. You know how I feel about this. I don't like the idea that you have to use feats. I would much prefer that we remove the idea of you select an improvement, an ability score improvement of +2, or you pick a feat that gives you a +1 and some mechanical stuff. I don't think that feats need to be part of the subclass, part of the ability score improvement advancement. Just leave the +2 there and move your feats over to transitioning them out of the subclass features. That would have been my preference, so that you can mess around with that a little bit more. And I mean, this is primarily a push and by the designers to appease optimizers, because I know my group are full of optimizers. I know where this is coming from. If you ask for a survey, you're going to get this sort of response. Anyway, that's beside the point. It's pretty much exactly the same, other than feats are not optional. Contact Patron at level 9 gives you contact other planes with a free successful saving throw once per day, so it's going to work. Finally, they've given something to the Warlock so they have a connection to their power source. I highly approve of this ability. Now, this is a feature that could have come online later than level 9. It didn't have to come on at level 9. It could have come on, at a higher level. I think that's probably more a high-level feature. It doesn't have to be level 9. So they've given it to you fairly early, so that's not too bad actually. It's not a bad thing at all. Now you might be looking at this and thinking, how will this help me? One, it helps connect you with the narrative of your Warlock. It will allow you to ask questions. You're not necessarily going to get the answers you want, but it does make sure that you have a feature which potentially is useful outside of combat. It also allows you to use your contact other planes as a warlock to help drive the adventure or story forward. And it's a nice tool for a game master to be able to drop clues and information that you need to get to the players in the first place when they start to use this once per day. So it's actually a really useful tool for a player and a game master, in my opinion. Will it solve all your problems? No. And if you try to do it that way, I'm sure your game master will step in. But anyway, I like it. I think it's good. Mystic Arcanum. I've never been a fan of Mystic Arcanum. It is starting to grow on me a little bit just because of, I guess, some of the changes they have made. But anyway, Mystic Arcanum gives the Warlock access to spells that are higher than level 5. So you get at level you get level 6 and to 9 spells for this. So the Warlock at level 11 will get spell of level 6, and then when you reach Warlock level 13, you'll get a 7th level spell, and then a Warlock of level 15 will get an 8th level spell, and a Warlock of level 17 will get a 9th level spell. So one of the problems with multi-classing is you're going to make it harder to get access to the much more powerful spells. You only get one of these. Like, you know, it's not a huge amount. Okay, I get, by level 17, I'm going to have one level 6, one level 7, one level 8, and one level 9. It's fine. It's simple. I don't have a huge problem with it. But multi-classing going to take longer to get to there. Anyway. Epic Boon at level 19. Everyone gets the Epic Boon feat access at level 19 for all the classes. Doesn't matter who you are. The Warlock is recommended to take the Boon of Fate, which is basically a D20 test boost. You add 2D4 to the dice roll. You can do that once, and then you got to take a long rest, I think it is. Yeah, I guess. As a feature, it's not my favorite. I'm gonna be honest. It isn't the thing that I would have picked out and said this is an epic kind of thing, and that's the one we want. But they made that choice. How useful you will find it, honestly, I don't know. I am not a fan of the epic boons. My general opinion is the epic boons are not that great. They're not usually set up for high level play, and they are essentially given to you at level 19 and above, level 20, and they're just not set up to do that. They're silly dice mechanics and the combat features, and at level 20 you don't need that sort of stuff. At level 19 you don't really need that stuff. It's not really that important. I have played to high level too, by the way. Anyway, Eldritch Master at level 20 lets you use your magical cunning to regain all your pack magic spell slots. Okay, fine. It's very boring. I would not say it is a sexy feature as a capstone. It's similar to the 2014 version, but not a great high-level feature. If I was thinking about whether I really needed to have this, I would probably sacrifice it. Most people are never going to get to level 20 anyway with their Warlock. How many people are going to play their Warlock as just a straight Warlock from level 1 all the way to level 20? It's going to be a hard ask. I've very rarely seen anybody play a Warlock in 2014 with the 5e rules that did not multi-class. And you still are multi-classing because the narrative doesn't quite fit what you're after. Anyway, although the Warlock has 2 more spells on their list, some of the spells that were there before, originally in 2014, they have been removed, and some have been added as well. The end result is the spells that the Warlock gains access to aren't as good as 2014. And overall, the spell list is probably not as good as 2014, in my opinion. It's great to see that the spell list is included in the Warlock class section of the book. I've said that with everything that I've covered so far. I think that's a good move. Well done. Hooray for that. The Warlock class is better in general. Like if you look at the Warlock in general, even though its spell list is a little bit reduced, in general, the Warlock is certainly better than it was before, the base. There are just minor changes, really. They haven't done a huge amount. And the subclasses are much better, except for maybe one. So I'm going to just briefly tell you what I think of the subclasses. I don't want to go through every single different feature necessarily at this point unless people want me to. What I would like to do, though, is just discuss some of the design concepts that seem to be going on with the Archfey, the Celestial, the Fiend, and the Great Old One. So the Archfey patron that you can have is designed around manipulating Misty Step to do all sorts of things, change its action, change its when you can use it, change its efficiency, things like that. So it's all about manipulating Misty Step. You get more spells, of course, because that tends to happen when you get a patron. You get more spell access, not more spell slots, but just more access to stuff. And being immune to the charmed condition, essentially. So that's your Archfey. It's all right. Yeah, it's not a bad subclass. I am not a fan of subclasses. I always feel like they tend to rob the base class of features they probably should have had in the first place. And in this case, I don't know that it necessarily has. Yeah, I don't think it necessarily has in this case. The Celestial Patron is built to heal. Like it's a heal bot. It grants temporary hit points to you and to your allies. You get resistance to a damage type that you will rarely use. Like, how often do you have need resistance to radiant damage? When is a monster or an opponent going to have something that does radiant damage? I think that was a miss. Not great. I mean, it certainly fits with the theme and the narrative, but not a great feature. Just forget about having resistance to damage and pick something else. Getting access to more spells again, doing radiant damage. Okay, so they've got a feature that can do some radiant damage, and you can save the dying. So it's the weakest subclass out of all of the Warlock ones, in my opinion. And it's probably, it probably shouldn't be, because it's the heal bot, really, in many respects. It's the Celestial Patron. The narrative behind the concept of a Celestial Patron is a little odd, but it's still something that I think people are interested in. I just don't think it's been executed very well in this case. The Fiend Patron is made to allow access to more spells, just like all of them. You get Fireball now. Like, if you want to cast Fireball, yeah, sweet, no problem. You get temporary hit points. You have, and I think almost every class has a way of getting temporary hit points in their class features somewhere along, whether it's in the base class or in a subclass, or all the subclasses. There seems to be always a temporary hit point thing. I don't like this, but anyway. It certainly will keep you in the fight longer, but it just drags things out. You have 1 damage resistance, which you can pick. Okay, there's I believe you don't get to pick every single option, but you get to pick most of them. You can add a D10 to a saving throw or an ability check. Sure, okay, another dice mechanic, but okay, I guess adding a D10 to a saving throw or an ability check is probably better than having advantage. So yeah, okay, I'll live with that. And then it has this whimpering feature where it tries to hurl an enemy into hell, and it doesn't really do it that well. There's a saving throw, which didn't used to be a saving throw before, and it does some damage, and it's a level 14 feature. Yeah, it's an interesting concept. Don't think it's been executed particularly well. Anyway, most of you are never going to get to use it anyway, so for level 14, you're not going to be there. Anyway, let's keep going. The Great Old One is a master crafting. The Great Old One seems to be made to please a lot of people. You get more spells, of course, just like all of them. You get 2-way telepathy rather than 1-way telepathy, which is ridiculous. So you finally get 2-way telepathy. Attacks on enemy, you can attack an enemy's mind, which is, interesting and useful. You can buff the Hex spell. And of course, Hex is one of those spells that Warlocks tend to wind up using, even though it's not necessarily a very good spell in some cases. It's certainly, this is all going to play together. There's a lot of synergy with the Great Old One. Psychic damage resistance. Sure, we needed to have psychic damage resistance, didn't we? There's always a damage resistance somewhere along here. You can cast Summon Aberration without concentration, so you don't have to concentrate on it. That's pretty good. Like being able to summon something like aberrations, that's pretty cool. I think that's definitely a high level feature. It's essentially just a spell though, but you don't have any. I don't think you got any summoning spells essentially on the list for the Warlock anyway. So it's always nice when that's included. This subclass gets more. It just gets more than all the other subclasses. Some of them are considered ribbon features, but you get more than all the other subclasses. So it's almost as if they've decided that the favorite child is the Great Old One, and the rest are not going to get quite as much as the others. So I'm not surprised that this is the strongest subclass, also has the most synergy out of all of the subclasses, because they gave it so many things and they made sure that everything built on top of it, and some of the features are much more in line with what you would normally expect for high level play, because generally the majority of the Warlock features from level 10 to 20 aren't suitable for the needs of a high level game. But they're definitely stronger than they were before, but they're not really in that line, except for the Great Old One, where I feel like it's definitely hitting the right mark. The Fiend patron and being able to hurl somebody into hell is trying to do something like that, but it doesn't quite pull it off as far as I'm concerned. This is a problem for Wizards of the Coast across all the classes, unfortunately, because the game is so different beyond level 10, and they still have not figured out how to design around that. Now, I'm going to have a drink of tea, and then I'm going to give you some of the things where they have not made changes, and I don't understand why they didn't. Things that I think we might see in the future. We could see these changes take place eventually. But although the Warlock is certainly a top tier class to play, it will definitely need multi-classing, particularly if you're not playing at range. It's still got some things that it doesn't quite realize, you know. The whole idea behind a Warlock is that you don't run out of magic. This is the selling point when they released Dungeons & Dragons 4e and the Warlock. Unlike a wizard, which runs out of magic, it's certainly slightly better than it was before. It's still not fully realized in 2024. And there's a couple of different reasons for that, which is unfortunate. And I think the first thing is Eldritch Blast. Why is Eldritch Blast not just a Warlock feature that nobody else can go and poach or pillage? Eldritch Blast, frankly, in my opinion, should only be for the Warlock. Nobody else using a feat or anything else should ever be able to get Eldritch Blast. For me, it doesn't make sense. It is also the key tool for a Warlock because it never runs out. It's a cantrip. Yeah, it's still a cantrip, and it should just be an attack feature for the Warlock. Generally, I think the Warlock should not even have spell slots. The problem with having spell slots and only having a few spell slots that you can use in any given period of time is that you will run out. And of course, most battles only take between 1, 2, or 3 rounds. But a Warlock is, unless you're using your cantrip and Eldritch Blast, you usually run out of all your spell slots within the first fight if you actually cast anything other than a cantrip or Eldritch Blast. Yes, you have invocations, but quite often invocations are not combat tools. They often fall into the bracket of buff before a battle or utility outside of combat, and they're not really the tools you need. I think you get rid of spell slots for a Warlock completely would be a smart idea. Just give them more cantrips, okay, so that they've got them there, and invocations. Give them more invocations, and make sure those invocations don't have limited uses. Like you can only use it once, and then you have to take a short or a long rest. Get rid of that short mechanic, long mechanic thing. Just ditch that nonsense, okay? If you had given them invocations that they could use an unlimited number of times, they do not all have to be combat, it probably would have helped. There are probably certain spells that you could make combat spells into invocations that really wouldn't upset the balance too much. It would definitely make the Warlock very different to how a sorcerer works, the wizard works, the druid, and the cleric. Now, I know a lot of people will be saying, well, but that would make it the best spellcaster. No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. There are ways of making sure that it's still going to have limited stuff that it can do, but it just doesn't run out of its magic. Do you know what I mean? And we have to decide how many different types of attack spells or combat spells are we willing to give the Warlock to give them variety, so they're not always casting Eldritch Blast, but also not make them, too many options, too many things they can do, making them essentially the best spellcaster in the game. And I believe it can be done. The Warlock doesn't get a dark, secret arcane sanctum or an interdimensional stronghold or something. This is one of the things, if I was playing a Warlock, this is what I would want. I would like a dark, secret arcane sanctum or an interdimensional stronghold, which is in a pocket dimension that I can call upon, kind of like the TARDIS from Doctor Who. It would be a really cool thing for high-level play, like beyond, around level 10 or slightly above that. That would be a great thing to have. I don't want a castle. I want something that I can just open up wherever I am, and we can jump in there and take a long rest, or make sure we're safe, or go do whatever I need to do in my workshop, or study whatever I need to do, or call up some demons or fae or whatever the heck it is. You know what I mean? I also think it would be cool to have had Warlocks have some followers. There are no followers in the 2024. It would be awesome. What I want to see is I want to see my Warlock be able to have some followers and then create their own cult. You're a Warlock. What do you want to do? What is the fantasy? It is to create a body of individuals around you that are following you or worshipping you in your cult. And of course, you might have a patron that you answer to, but yeah, there's nothing more that fulfills the fantasy of the Warlock as starting your own cult. Why can't the Warlocks step through a portal when they need to? Like, if you are a Fae Warlock, why can't we just step through make a portal when we need to? Not necessarily in one action. I mean, make it a 1 minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. And I can step through, if I'm Fae, into the Fae realm whenever I want to, outside of combat. I don't want to use it as an escape route all the time in battle, but at least I can step in and step out when I need to. That would be good. Same with if the Fiend one. If I could step in and out of hell or the abyss, that would be awesome. That would be very fitting for that type of Warlock at high level. Open a portal, step on through. Same with the Celestial, like being able to step through and go to the Celestial realm and then back again. With your old Great One, being able to go to the Far realm, which you probably shouldn't do, but it'd still be fun. Yeah, I would have liked that, but they didn't do anything like that. Allowing the Warlock to make or gain access to a dark legendary magic item or weapon at high level. I've said this with all the classes, like there should be some progression where built into it, you can get yourself that legendary magic item because you made it yourself. This is quite often what players really want. Now, I know the time frames around this are really crazy, so maybe it's granted or gifted by your patron or something like that. that would have been my go-to. Is like, I think, if you were Pact of the Blade, you would want a weapon, like a legendary magical weapon. Maybe that weapon itself is not actually your physical thing. Maybe you create it from the magic of being a warlock. Maybe the warlock creates that legendary magic item from their magic, rather than it being a physical thing like a normal cloak of invisibility, or some sort of high level legendary magic item. Maybe it is formed for a period of time, or it's just formed by their magic. That would be something I could go for. And I feel like that should have been part of that progression. Like, you literally create it out of the atoms and the magic floating in the air. Now, the capstone. I need to talk about the capstone, because I think one of the things you've got to understand when you play a warlock, there's a couple of different fantasies. One, there is the Fey fantasy, the Celestial fantasy, the Fiend fantasy, and the Great Old One, which is essentially an aberration of some kind, right? The capstone for the warlock sucks. Like, not all the capstones for the classes have sucked. Some of them are really strong. There's certainly level 20 features. The warlock one for me is not. Do you know why? What ultimately, as a warlock, would you like to do? I know what my players in my group would want to do, and the people that I play with in my home group want. And I think I'm right about this, and you'll let me know if I'm wrong. What is your ultimate fantasy as a warlock? It is to let the players transform fully into a full-blown fiend, like a demon or a devil, or to transform into a fey creature of some kind, or to transform into a celestial, or to transform into a great old one of some kind, some sort of aberration, and to no longer have to rely on their patron for their power. That decoupling of the connection to your patron. You know why? Because as a warlock, you have finally become your own patron. Do you know what I mean? You literally, you are the powerhouse. You've borrowed somebody else's power. It's been on lease, or you've been renting it. You've had to follow their dictum until and work with them and to maintain your power. But now you've reached a point where you have actually been able to create your own power within you, so you are the patron now. What else does a player want to do when they play a warlock class? This is the pinnacle. This is where I think they should have gone, and they didn't. I know a few of you are thinking, seriously, Fred? Transform into a demon or a devil or a fey creature or a celestial or a great old one? That's way too much. No, it's not. You're level 20. It won't matter. It just won't matter. And it's definitely, if you told me we're going to play from level 1 to 20 and I will miss out on that capstone because this is the capstone, if I multiclass, I would not multiclass. I would not worry about it multiclassing, because if I can play to that, yes, that's what I want. That is the ultimate for a warlock. And they didn't hit it, unfortunately. I think it's a bit of a shame. Sad to see that not on the cards, but maybe somebody else will do that. Yeah, Fred says as he knows fully well he's going to do it. Anyway, I know this is what my players want. Anyway, let's have a quick look through the what is it? Do I really want to go through all of the different subclasses and all their features? I think maybe I'm going to just stop there and get some feedback from people, see what they have to say, and then I'll break down things more if you want, but yeah, I'm kind of more curious about what other people have to say now. So that's my review of the Warlock. Better than it was before. Absolutely better than it was before. Has it fully realized? Not quite. But yeah, I don't know that everybody's going to be that disappointed, because they got more than they did before. And thanks for watching and listening. Thank you to my patrons who support me on Patreon. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Okay. All right, let's... I think at this point I will go through the various features and just comment on them briefly. Just for the subclasses, I've already gone over the basic class stuff, but I didn't go over I didn't go through every. There's too many invocations to try to deal with the invocations. The invocation list is massive, but the subclasses we can probably deal with. So we'll do that. Okay. All right, here we go. So, Archfey, Patron. We got a basic idea of what it is. Powered by the Fey. So you just Archfey spells. It just gives you more spells. The spells aren't bad. Do you know what I mean? Misty Step, Fairy Fire, Phantasmal Force. Sleep's a good spell. Yeah. Greater Invisibility. It's a good spell. And then we keep going. So again, we get another level 3. At level 3, we're going to get Step of the Fae. So this is building on the Misty Step. So basically, you can cast Misty Step without expending a spell slot a number of times equal to your Charisma modifier, which means you need to make sure that's high. And you regain also expended uses on a long rest. So it's basically your ability to use that Misty Step and jump around the battlefield. And then the Refreshing Step, you get Refreshing Step and Taunting Step. So I'm kind of all right with this to a certain degree, although I don't know that I like the idea of Misty Step 30 feet as much as you like. It is still, I think it's still a bonus action, isn't it? Misty Step's still a bonus action. It's not an action, so you can do something else as well. I think might have been more interesting to just make Misty Step replace your movement so you didn't have to walk. That would have been hilarious, so that you didn't. Then just don't worry about having limited uses. I don't walk anywhere. I just teleport. Yeah. Anyway, Refreshing Step. So immediately after you teleport, you can, or one creature, you can see within 10 feet gains temporary hit points 1d10. Okay, there's so many things like this already in the game for 2024. Taunting Step. So creatures within 5 feet of the space you left must succeed on a Wisdom saving throw, and they have disadvantage on attack rolls if they screw up that saving throw. Okay, not really a fond of this. There's not that many things that give you disadvantage against attacks. Giving your enemy disadvantage. There aren't a lot of things that do this, so I guess that's something. But yeah, it's not. I don't get it. I don't get either of those features, frankly. Next, level 6. Misty Escape. Again, we're back to Misty Step as a reaction now. So instead of a bonus action, it's a reaction when you take damage. So you can put into place. So Disappearing Step, you have the invisible condition until the start of your next turn, or immediately after you make an attack roll, deal damage, or cast a spell. Being invisible is always useful. Dreadful Step. The problem is this is only in combat, really, and so it's not outside of combat. There's the hassle for me, but anyway. Dreadful Step, the creatures within 5 feet of the space that you left, or the space you appear in, your choice, must succeed on a Wisdom saving throw, and otherwise they take 2d10 psychic damage. Yeah, well, I guess it's fitting for a level 6 feature. Like level 3 and 6, I would expect to see combat features anyway, so that's fine. Level 10, let's see what they've done here. You are immune to the charmed condition. This is more in line with a level 10 feature. Yes, it is definitely a combat feature, but being charmed can extend beyond combat into the rest of the game. So I'll say yes, that's all right. Then you have this other thing which I don't quite get. In addition, immediately after a creature you can see hits you with an attack roll, you can take a reaction to reduce the damage that you take by half, and you can force the attacker to make a Wisdom saving throw against your spell saving DC. On a failed save, the attacker takes psychic damage. So yeah, okay, all right. So you get hit, it's a reaction, somebody else takes damage. Once you use this reaction, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. So it's like it's a one-off thing. It's level 10. I'm fine with the charm condition thing. This other thing is more a low-level feature as far as I'm concerned. It's just on the border as far as I'm concerned. Next, level 14, Bewitching Magic. Your patron grants you the ability to weave your magic with teleportation. So we're back to Misty Step. Immediately after you cast an enchantment or illusion spell using an action and a spell slot, So you have to use an action and you have to use a spell slot. So yeah, you can cast Misty Step. So as part of the same action without expending a spell slot. So in other words, you're getting more uses of Misty Step. Do you know what probably would have been smarter for me is instead of giving us the Bewitching Magic Misty Step, pretty much just give us Misty Step as movement here, because movement and mobility is far more powerful than doing damage, okay, as a magical feature in the game. And it extends beyond other things. Give me the concept of I can cast Misty Step as much as I like at level 14 and ditch this other thing here that talks about Misty Escape and the other thing here, the steps of the Fae. Give me something different there. That would have been my preference. But anyway, let's keep going. The Celestial. More spells. Nothing wrong with Cure Wounds. It's better than it was before. Aid's a good spell. Lesser Restoration is always useful. When you need it, you will need it. Light and the Sacred Flame are pretty... they're not great. Daylight's pretty good. Revivify is an excellent spell. And Wall of Flame. Guardian of Faith I've seen used quite a lot. Greater Restoration is often viewed as not being a great spell, but it can solve problems, and Summon Celestial. So you'll notice that a lot of our summoning spells are tied into the subclasses. If you hadn't noticed, that's very much where they're going with this. So at level 3, you also get Healing Light. So this is where you get to do a bit of healing since you are Celestial. And you gain the ability to channel your Celestial energy to heal wounds. And you have a pool of D6s to fuel this healing. The number of dice that you get is equal to 1 plus your Warlock level. So if your Warlock level is 2, you'd have 2 plus 1, which means you get 3 D6s that you can use. So as a bonus action, you can heal yourself or one creature you can see within 60 feet of you. So you do not have to be touching them. You can do it at distance. Expend dice from the pool. The maximum number of dice you can expend at once equals your Charisma modifier. So you can't sort of just dump. If you're high level, you can't dump them all on somebody. It's going to be restricted by your Charisma modifier. And I guess this is just to sort of balance out the game. This is a pretty good useful tool, and it's available at low level, okay, level 3. Roll the dice and you expend, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, and it recharges, you get your pullback of dice on a long rest. Next, level 6, Radiant Soul. So your link to the patron allows you to serve as a conduit for radiant energy. So basically you have resistance to radiant damage, which I've said before, you're almost never going to come across this. So once per turn when a spell you cast deals radiant or fire damage, you can add your charisma modifier. Now this is a bit more useful, but the resistance to radiant damage is not great. If they had said you can pick radiant or fire damage, I would have said, yes, that's more like it, because fire damage is quite common, whereas radiant damage is never going to happen. So yeah, this is more suitable, I think, for a low-level feature. Resistances and changing damage types is more in line with that. So you add your charisma modifier to a spell that does radiant or fire damage. Fits in line with the Celestial, and it's all right for that level. Okay, just need to change this resistance a bit. Next, level 10. You gain temporary hit points. Oh God, should have guessed. Whenever you used your magical cunning feature or finish a short or long rest, these temporary hit points equal your Warlock level plus your Charisma modifier. Additionally, choose up to 5 creatures you can see when you gain these points, and those creatures gain temporary hit points equal to your Warlock level plus your Charisma modifier. That's probably one of the strongest things, is the fact that you can give them to somebody else, not just yourself. So Celestial Resistance is a pretty good feature. I am not a fan of giving people temporary hit points just because players already have so many already. They're giving them more just means the monsters haven't got a chance. And I mean, of actually doing anything. What are you going to do? You're going to get rid of their temporary hit points on the first blow, and they've still got all their normal hit points. I don't know that I like this as an idea, but it's not weak. It's very strong. It's level 10. It's really on the border of where I think it's necessary. If this was at lower level, it would have a greater effect. At higher level, it won't make much of a difference anyway, because they're going to You've got so many hit points at that point. Level 14, Searing Vengeance. So when an ally within 60 feet of you is making death saving throws, you can unleash radiant energy to save the creature. Okay, so the creature regains hit points equal to half your hit point maximum, which is quite a few, and you end half its hit point maximum, which is a huge number of hit points, and you end the prone condition, so you're standing up. Okay. Each creature of your choice that is within 30 feet of the creature takes radiant damage. So you can also do damage as well as heal somebody. And that damage is 2d8 plus your charisma modifier. Yeah, they are also blinded because radiant energy just flew out of you. This is definitely a high level feature, but it's still tailored around combat. But it's definitely a high level feature. And you can't use this again unless you finish a long rest. So it's a one shot, bam, and then you take a long rest. But yeah, it's pretty suitable for that kind of thing. It's not very creative, but anyway. Next one, Fiend Patron, Dark One's Blessing. So more temporary hit points, as you should have guessed. When you reduce an enemy to 0 hit points, you regain temporary hit points equal to your charisma modifier plus your Warlock level. Gosh, I feel like we've read that one out before. Minimum of 1. You also gain this benefit if someone else reduces an enemy within 10 feet of you to 0 hit points. So if you're close enough, which you probably don't want to be unless you're wearing decent armor and you are, Pact of the Blade or a melee Warlock, this feature is not going to come into play. But the secondary feature, the first feature, will come into play. Fiend gets spells. Burning Hands is all right. Scorching Ray is it's all right. Command, Suggestion, Fireball is the big one. Stinking Cloud, and Wall of Fire, pretty good. But yeah, it's Fireball and Wall of Fire that you're probably looking at more. Next, level 6, Dark One's Own Luck. So this is basically when you make an ability check or a saving throw, you can use this feature to add that D10 to the dice roll. I am not a fan of features like this. It is the sort of thing that is more suitable for, I guess, level 6, 5, 3, I guess. It's not a sexy feature, but it's there. It's better than an advantage. And you can use this feature a number of times equal to your charisma modifier. So it's not just a one-off. You get to do it a couple of times. And then you're going to take a long rest to get it all back. Next, there's so many things to track in 2024. There's so many different things you're tracking in 2024. It's going to be a bit of a nightmare if you ask me. Level 10, Fiendish Resistance. So you get to pick a damage type. You can't pick Force, but anything else, and you can be resistant to that damage type. Okay? Whenever you finish a long or short rest, you can change it out too, so you don't have to stick with just one. It is an interesting feature. Is it a level 10 feature? It's on the borderline as far as I'm concerned. So I'd say it's all right for level 10. Would it stop me from multi-classing? Probably not. Not necessarily. Do you know what I mean? Remember, this is one damage type, and the Barbarian has all damage types at really low level. So I might even be better off to do something crazy like go Barbarian of Warlock. I hadn't even thought about that. Anyway, if I really wanted resistances. This is not a key feature for me. Let's keep going. Here's the level 14 feature for the Fiend, and that is the Hurl Through Hell. So once per turn, when you hit a creature with an attack, you can try to instantly transport the target through the lower planes. The target must succeed on a charisma saving throw. Good, at least it's not a wisdom saving throw. It's a charisma saving throw using your spell DC, and the target disappears. Hurls through a nightmare landscape, and then the target takes 8d10 psychic damage, which is, it's all right if it isn't a fiend. So if it's not a fiend, it's going to take this damage. And it has the incapacitated condition, so it doesn't work on a fiend, but it will work on everybody else. It's all right. Again, you can use this once, and then you've got to go take a long rest to get it back. Okay. Next, the Great Old One. Now, the Great Old One is very, very good. It is much better than all the rest, and they've thrown far too much love into the Great Old One, and they haven't taken enough time with the other ones, in my opinion. Finally, I feel like the art for the Warlock is starting to be in the right place. This is more like what I think of a Warlock. When I think of a Warlock, that is a bad girl, okay? And this is a bad guy, Warlocky. Yes, you got that shadow in the... this one, I'm not a huge fan on. I know what they're trying to do here, but I'm not a fan of it. And this one is the Fae. Well, they're all trying to do something, but I feel like even if you were Fae, I feel like there's still a dark aspect to you, and I just think that's not quite right. But the Great Old One, I think definitely hits it. Next here, level 3, Awakened Mind. So finally you have telepathy that allows you to link your mind to another mind as a... I don't know why does it have to be a bonus action? Just let them do it. Choose one creature you can see within 30 feet of you. It's pretty short. Like, can't we extend that out a bit? But no, it's 30 feet. And you and the chosen creature can communicate telepathically with each other while the two of you are within a number of miles. So it does extend out. So it's the starting point of activating it, okay? And yeah, you've got a fair distance after that. You have to understand the same language. If you don't understand the same language, it doesn't work. I don't know why we needed to limit that, but apparently we do. The telepathic connection lasts a number of minutes equal to the Warlock level. Why did it have to be minutes? Your Warlock level is really an indicator. Make it hours. Just set it up for hours. This feature here is good at low level and at high level, and as far as I'm concerned. It's a good feature, it just needed a bit more tweaking. But it doesn't matter because you get another thing. You get your Great Old One spells, and you get a bunch of things that very much feel like the Warlock. Hunger of Hadar, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, Phantasmal Force, Dissonant Whispers, Confusion, Summon Aberration, and Telekinesis and Modify Memory. But you're not finished here, because still, look, level 3, and again a level 3. Psychic spells. When you cast a Warlock spell that deals damage, you can change its damage type to Psychic. In addition, when you cast a Warlock spell that is an enchantment or illusion spell, you don't have to use a verbal or somatic component. So let's think about that. That's enchantment and illusion. So when you're trying to trick somebody, enchantment is trying to affect their mind. Illusion is trying to affect their senses so that they're seeing something they're not used to seeing. You can now hide what you're up to. As long as there is no material component involved in the spell, you've got a much better chance of pulling it off because there's no verbal or somatic component. This is very, very strong. This means you will actually be able to hoodwink people with your Warlock at level 3. I approve of something like this. This is a good feature. It is going to probably cause a Game Master a few headaches. But anyway, it's still a smart design. I like it. Anyway, keep going. Level 6, we get Clairvoyant Combatant. So in other words, when you have a telepathic bond with another creature, you can use your Awakened Mind and can force that creature to make a Wisdom saving throw. And essentially, if they fail, they have disadvantage on attack rolls, and you have advantage on attack rolls against them for the duration of the bond. And you can't use this feature until you finish a short or long rest. So it's a one-shot thing. I suppose it's all right for a level 6 feature because it's combat related and it will affect them in some way. Yeah, it's all right. It's right. But it doesn't matter because we're going to jump into some of the other things. And it's at level 10 that things get a little bit wacky. Okay? Level 10, you get Eldritch Hex. Your alien patron grants you a powerful curse. You always have Hex as a prepared spell. So you don't have to worry about that. You can cast Hex and choose an ability. The target has disadvantage on saving throws of the chosen ability for the duration of the spell. So if you use this in combination with another spellcaster, there's a much better chance you can mess up their ability to fight off that spell, particularly if it's a saving throw. So it's going to synergize with other characters well. It can also potentially synergize very nicely when you're doing stuff. But anyway, let's keep going. Thought Shield. Your thoughts can't be read by telepathy or other means unless you allow it. You also have resistance to psychic damage. Of course, we had to have resistance somewhere along the line. There it is. There's our resistance. And whenever a creature deals psychic damage to you, the creature takes the same amount of damage. So you're forcing it back on them, and you have resistance to it. I like the idea that your thoughts can't be read. This is suitable. I think this is much more in line with being a level 10 feature, but some of it is on the border, for being low-level stuff. But it doesn't matter because we now have that Eldritch Hex with the Hex spell, and then we have Create Thrall at level 14. When you cast Summon Aberration, so we can now summon our Aberration, okay, you can modify it. It doesn't require concentration. Seriously, a summoning spell that doesn't require concentration is definitely a high-level feature because you're creating something else that is now on the battlefield. But it's not just in the battlefield because it could be summoned outside of the battlefield. So there's a lot of different things you can do. If you do so, the spell's duration becomes 1 minute for that casting, and when summoned, the aberration has a number of temporary hit points as well, equal to the Warlock level plus their Charisma modifier. So you pair this with other things, and things start to get very interesting. In addition, the first time each turn the aberration hits a creature under the effect of Hex, the aberration deals extra damage. So there is a interplay between potentially the Eldritch Hex and the Summoning Thrall with your Summoning Aberration. It's really, really strong as a feature. It's not a weak thing. And I don't know what to say other than I think somebody definitely liked the Great Old One more than the rest of them because I've given them so much. Yeah. Anyway, let's have a look at the chat and see what people have to say, because I have kind of been talking for over an hour. And let's see what you now. If there's something you would like to mention, if you want me to go over the invocations, I will. I don't really want to go through every single invocation. There have been slight changes. There's so many. There's so many. So Fred Hubert is a patron. Thanks for being here, Fred. He was just saying that if a class needs multi-classing, it's a bad class design. I think what they needed to do is they needed to have a choice somewhere in the Warlock where you decide whether you are a blaster Warlock at range or you're up in the face kind of Warlock. So that when you make that decision, you're going to get some benefits as being a ranged Warlock and some benefits as being a close quarter Warlock. So that you didn't need to worry about that multi-classing thing. Other than that, maybe there just needs to be a completely different class built to be the in combat Gish, and the Warlock should not be the class you try to do it with, because a lot of people try to create it from other classes, the Gish, right? Hello Eddie, how are you? I love the new look with the Cloud Goliath and a dip into fighter. The new lock, the new Warlock, not the new look, the new Warlock. Cloud Goliath, a dip into fighter. Yeah, and I guess a lot of people will probably be dipping into fighter and going Warlock, Warlock and fighter. But I mean, you can dip into anything that has medium proficiency in armor and has shield proficiency, and you're probably fine. Hello, Jacob. Yeah, it's children's cereal box artwork sometimes. Absolutely, Jacob. I hate to say it, Eddie, but there are actually orcs that are based in a part of I think it's the Faerun. Is it the Faerun? There is a tribe or a collection of orcs that have sort of a Mexican theme to them. It's actually not a new thing. They just produced some art for it this time. So yeah. Anyway, hello Jacob. There's one from Keys of the Golden Vault where two characters are chuckling and smirking as they hold guards hostage. It's bizarre and weird. I don't remember it. Sorry. Get the gold. Yeah. Take the gold and go just buy your own stuff. You want to play the Warlock like the movie version. So what Eddie's talking about is a movie called Warlock. I believe there is quite a few of them, but the first one's probably the one he's talking about. I remember that movie. It is a scary, scary movie, that one. That Warlock was bad news bear. He really was. Anyway. So yeah, look, I know some people love feats, and I know, and like in my group, we can have people who have feats and people who don't. And there are some people in my group who do not take feats, they don't like them, and now they have that extra complexity they didn't really want to have to deal with. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's how it works. It's happened. It's too late. Shouldn't be surprised. To properly use the contact other planes, the Warlock patron needs to actually be named and the patron packed terms discussed during PC creation. Fred, I tend to agree with you. It's probably something you need to have a discussion with your game master to figure all that out. I don't think you necessarily have to do that at character creation. My general feeling is that you may not know exactly who your patron is straight away, because they might be keeping their identity secret. And then, of course, you probably know more about what kind of patron you have when you reach level 3. You select it. Okay, I now know, my character knows the power that I have claimed. The patron is either a Fae, Fiend, Celestial, or a Great Old One. And that's probably the extent of what they know. But when we get this, contact other planes feature, now I can actually start determining a bit more about that patron, and so we're going into a bit more detail. So I feel like you can do that as emergent play and just do it as you're playing the game and progressing your character. They aren't that epic for you. No, epic boons are not that epic. Epic boons have been set at power levels where they are nearly useless. That's exactly the thing. That they're set at a power level where they don't really have a huge effect on the game anymore. If you make epic boons epic, then people won't multiclass, but they're not epic enough to warrant not multiclassing. This is the problem with the game. Can one run out of cantrips? No, but you can give them more options with your cantrips. Like 2 cantrips at level 1, it's pretty small. We're talking about look, when we were dealing with Warlocks in 4E, like the one thing you could be guaranteed is you always had something you could throw out there as a Warlock. You didn't need to worry too much about it. And I feel like maybe just expanding their cantrip list a little bit. If you don't do that, at least expand the invocations and get rid of the spell slots. I think spell slots harm the Warlock far too much. If D&D has Warlocks, then where are the witches? I think the witch is the wizard, isn't it? Essentially. Do we call them hags? Polymorph is a level 20 feature. Is still a bit weak. Well, yeah, but true polymorph is not. True polymorph at level 20 is not a weak feature. That is definitely a very strong feature. I would definitely lean more into that for level 20. Hello, Glenn. How's it going, Mr. Welsh? I don't know if you're still here. If you are, let me know. But I suspect you're probably gone by now. Does everybody get Misty Step now, though? Yeah, pretty much. It feels like everybody's got something that lets them bounce around. I don't know why they're doing that, but apparently it seems to be the going thing. What's the other thing? Temporary hit points. Everybody gets temporary hit points. Everybody gets something that they can do is cast a spell if you're a spellcaster as a bonus action. Everybody can bounce around in some way with Misty Step or some sort of teleportation thing. And everybody gets, what else is there? I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember. Anyway, it's very true. All right, I'm going to end this poll. And yeah, the Warlock is not a weak or poor class. Like is it fully realized? I wouldn't say it is. But is it good enough? It's probably good enough. It's probably good enough. Do you like the new Warlock class for Dungeons and Dragons 2024? Undecided, 56% out of 16 votes. It's really interesting. I would not have guessed that people were so on the fence with this. And my suspicion is it's because the narrative for the Warlock has not been fully realized. Do you know what I mean? Just watching, 25%, yes, 12%, no, 6%. Good Lord. Is this my audience or just how people are thinking? I would not have guessed any of that. In any case, it doesn't matter. I'm going to be going, this is the last one for the week. I'm going to be away for a few days, like, is it 3 days? 3 days, 4 days, something like that. I think it's 3 days. 3 days, I'll be back in 3 days. And yeah, we're going to do another class. I'll cover another class. We've done a few now. I think we've done the wizard, we've done the monk, we've done the ranger, we've done the warlock, and I'm not quite sure which one I'm doing next. I'm going to think about it a little bit more. Trying very much to lean into the ones that people are talking about the most. And then, of course, when I finish doing all the classes, I'm probably going to stop talking about Dungeons and Dragons 2024. Frankly, because I have better things to do with my time. You're probably going to see me just more design work and Shadow Dark, because I like the idea of creating stuff for Shadow Dark. I like that game system a lot, and Super Atomic, but that's more drawing. Anyway, we'll see how that works. Cool. All right. Thank you for watching and listening. Thank you for sharing your ideas in the chat. Thank you for taking part in the poll. I want to thank all of my patrons. All the best with your game for the rest of the year and into next year. And I will be back to talk about another class next week. So wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, or the night, please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.